The crowd froze. Just seconds ago, that security guard had smugly shoved her aside, convinced he was doing the right thing. And now, he stood there, stone-faced, as the bank's chief executive officer tore him apart. "You just kicked out one of our biggest investors." Tension filled the air. Someone pulled out their phone. Cameras started rolling. The guard visibly paled. He tried to say something, but the words caught in his throat. And that was just the first blow. What happened next changed everything. But let's start from the beginning. The heat was melting the streets of Manhattan, the air shimmering above the scorching asphalt. Jordan Carter stepped out of the taxi, smoothly extending her legs, and paused for a second, glancing around. The tall facade of the bank reflected the blinding sun, while inside, through the glass doors, figures in expensive suits rushed about their business. For them, this was just another day. For her, it was too. She had been in this industry for over 10 years, knowing it inside and out. Her portfolio included investments in real estate, tech startups, and even oil companies. Today, she was here for a meeting to discuss a $50 million deal. And she wasn't just a participant. She was leading the process. Jordan adjusted the lapels of her impeccably tailored light-colored suit, straightened her shoulders, and stepped toward the towering bank doors. "Excuse me, ma'am, but you're not allowed in here." A sharp voice stopped her mid-step. She looked up. At the entrance stood a security guard, a white man in his 40s, tall, stocky, with the face of someone used to sorting people by appearance. Jordan instantly understood what was happening. "Excuse me?" she asked evenly, keeping her composure. "This place isn't for outsiders," he said slowly, his gaze sweeping over her from head to toe. Something inside her tensed, but she didn't let it show. "I have a meeting with Mr. Waters. He's expecting me." The guard snorted. "Oh, really?" His lips curled into a smirk. "Sorry, but no one told me a maid was coming." The words sliced through her nerves. The crowd around them suddenly fell silent, sensing the subtle undertones of what was happening. Jordan felt anger boiling inside her, but she knew how to handle situations like this. If she let her emotions take over, she'd instantly be labeled as aggressive or unruly. A deep breath. She pulled out her phone and calmly scrolled through her latest messages. "Here's the confirmation of my meeting. My access to the building should already be approved." The guard didn't budge. "There must be some mistake. You're not on the list." "A mistake?" She frowned. "I personally spoke with—" "Listen, lady, don't make trouble. This is private property." Her fingers curled into a fist. Before she could finish, he roughly shoved her shoulder, forcing her to take a step back. The crowd gasped. Rage crashed over her like a tidal wave. Jordan nearly lost her balance, but she held steady. Her entire body tensed, but she refused to sway or stumble. The security guard stood in front of her, arms crossed, looking down with a smug smirk. His expression said, "You don't belong here." She had seen that look before. In school, her math teacher had shaken his head doubtfully when she applied for the Olympiad. In college, a professor had smiled and asked, "Who helped you write your thesis?" Early in her career, she had been dismissed time and time again, until they saw the numbers in her portfolio. But it was one thing to be underestimated in a boardroom. It was something else entirely to be publicly humiliated in front of dozens of people. The crowd at the bank's entrance had gone silent. People were watching, but no one intervened. Someone discreetly pulled out their phone and started recording. Jordan heard the whispers behind her. "Did you see that? She just wanted to go in." Did he seriously shove her? Maybe she really isn't supposed to be here. That question hit harder than the shove itself. Not because she doubted herself, but because there was always someone ready to justify this kind of behavior. The guard wasn't fazed. "Please, miss, don't make a scene," he said, his voice laced with both mockery and disdain. He looked at her like an unwelcome guest, an intrusion in a world he saw as orderly and comfortable. Jordan exhaled slowly. "You know how this works. You can't cause a scene. You can't yell. You can't let your emotions take over. Because then, you become that angry black woman they expect you to be." But that didn't mean she had to stay silent. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. The guard frowned. Hey, let's not make any calls, all right?" Jordan ignored him. She dialed one number and brought the phone to her ear. "Andrew? Yes, I'm here. But you have a problem with your staff. I suggest you come out, now." The crowd stirred. The guard's confidence wavered. "Who are you calling?" he asked with forced amusement, but there was a hint of unease in his voice. Jordan slowly turned her gaze to him. "The bank's chief executive officer." And just like that, his smug smirk vanished. The heavy glass doors of the bank swung open forcefully, sending a ripple through the air inside. The sharp click of expensive shoes echoed across the marble floor. Andrew Waters, the bank's chief executive officer, stepped out. His silver hair was immaculately combed back, and his dark blue suit fit his tall, lean frame perfectly. He scanned the scene, spotted Jordan, and his expression shifted, surprise mixed with concern. "Jordan!" His voice was loud, tense. "Why are you standing outside?" The security guard froze. His back stiffened, but he hadn't yet grasped the gravity of the situation. "Sir, I can explain." But Waters wasn't looking at him. He had already turned to Jordan and, with a slight tilt of his head, asked the one question that changed everything. "Did this man refuse to let you in?" Jordan locked eyes with the guard. She could have simply nodded, but she wasn't about to let him off with just a scare. She turned to the crowd, now recording every moment on their phones, and spoke loud and clear. "This man called me a maid. This man shoved me aside. This man decided he had the right to judge who is worthy of entering this bank." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And now, he's going to find out exactly who I am." The crowd gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. The guard took a step back, but Jordan didn't give him space. She stepped forward, closing the distance. "You have no idea how many times I've been stopped," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "How many times I've had to prove that I didn't walk into the wrong building." She let her gaze sweep over the spectators. "But this time is different." Andrew pressed his lips together, then turned to the guard, his voice low, but each word cut like a blade. "Do you understand what you've done?" "Sir, I just..." "She looked like... I thought she..." The guard swallowed hard. "You thought." It sounded like a death sentence. "You thought you had the power to decide who enters this bank?" Waters' voice grew louder, fiercer. "You thought she was what? A random client? A homeless woman?" The guard stared at the ground, silent. "Allow me to educate you." Waters stepped closer. "She is one of our biggest investors." The crowd erupted. "She just secured this bank a $50 million deal." The guard's eyes widened, his face drained of color. "Sir, I didn't know." Jordan smiled, but it was a cold, sharp smile. "Didn't you tell me? Don't make a scene, miss?" The guard opened his mouth, but no words came out. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Phones were raised, cameras rolling. "Ladies and gentlemen," Waters turned to the bank employees at the entrance. "Make sure this man never works in any field that requires an ounce of judgment." He turned back, his voice final. "You're fired." A moment of absolute silence. The words, "You're fired," hung in the air like the crash of a gong. The crowd held its breath. Then came the first chuckle, then another, and within seconds people were clapping, some even whistling. The security guard went pale. "Sir, please, this has to be some mistake." His voice trembled as he turned to Waters. But the bank executive didn't even look at him. He stood beside Jordan, his expression filled with respect, not doubt. "Jordan," Waters' voice was almost apologetic. "Please, let's go inside. We have a deal to discuss." But Jordan didn't move. She turned to the now former guard. He stood there, fists clenched, as if unable to believe what had just happened. "Remove your access badge and leave the premises," an employee ordered in a flat tone. "This is bullshit," the man muttered, but he didn't move. Then he felt it. Dozens of eyes on him. Some people had their phones up, recording his face. "Look, there he is," someone called out. "Yeah, the guard who shoved a woman. Let's post this on Twitter. Dude, you just got fired in front of 100 people. The guard spun around, his jaw clenched tight. "Screw all of you." He shot one last hateful look at Jordan, his eyes burning with resentment. But hers were completely calm. "You lost," she said quietly. Then she turned to Waters. "Let's go. I'm done wasting my time." She stepped through the massive glass doors, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Behind her, another wave of laughter erupted. But Jordan never looked back. She entered the bank as a winner. This time, no one dared to stop her.